Happy Wednesday, everyone.
We take on the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets reload and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Games rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. Deceit, murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flame. Locked on the case, we investigate.
This is 12-gauge investigative. Let's jump in.
You'll ever need 12-gauge investigate. We make them bleed. No games, no censors, just truth. Justice is loud, and we're the sound. This is 12-gauge investigative.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight on this Thursday? It seems like my Texas team, the softball team, is falling behind, as Texas said, 2-0 in the bottom of the fifth. Hopefully they can pull it out like they did last night. We need that championship, man. Texas changes the world. Anyway, there's been some new documents. I don't feel like going into those documents tonight. Possibly this weekend or maybe tomorrow. That'll give me something to do. Tonight, I just wanted to continue reading while Idaho slept, because I really don't have a lot to really talk about as far as Idaho is concerned. And I did the Travis Decker case this morning. I did a little bit on it. So I don't know if you guys were able to see that. It was kind of like an upload, so it wasn't alive. But that case is going to be something else until they find that man. I believe that they're probably going to find him deceased. I don't see that he's going to be one of those that it's going to be brought in on his own free will. I don't see that, but I could be wrong, I could be wrong. And I turned my head to the left over here because I'm messing with this light. I've noticed that on some of the other lives. I'm talking, but my head's turned that way. And I'm like, whoa, come on, 12, get it together. Yeah, let's hope they do capture him. That is a sad case. And it's even sadder that the 3 victims that he took out, his own children. I did hear somebody told me that he was ex-military, so I don't know if any of that has anything to do with it, but regardless of the excuses, he still killed his children. So I mean, at one point or another, you have to hold somebody accountable, not be looking for reasons to exonerate them. You know what I mean? He's still guilty. Otherwise, he would have stayed where he was at, and he'd be in custody tonight. So there's been new photos of the man. I did post those on they used to call it the community post, but now they just call it post. So if anybody's watching that's in that area, be on the lookout for that individual, because I mean, the news said they're not certain if he's armed, but he could be armed and dangerous. So you need to watch out regardless. And there are new photos on my post and all over the YouTube. I've seen a lot of people discussing it, which is awesome. That is always awesome when something like that comes out. As many people can get together and get the word out. because he needs to be caught. He needs to be brought to justice because, if anything else, for the memory of those three little girls. I mean, I think my girlfriend told me that he strangled them or choked them until they passed away. And I believe that one of them was trying to get away after he did that. And he still went after her and killed her. So that individual needs to be brought to justice. He really does. It's not a good case. Just terrible to think about. It's terrible to think about that those poor little girls were just out. Um, they were about to go to a soccer game, I think, or some kind of run, some kind of benefit or something. They were out there about to do that. They were going to do a benefit run or something like that, and he used that opportunity to kill them. The mother did place a missing person because obviously she didn't feel right about it, and they didn't issue an Amber Alert. And so the last thing we need to do is blame the mom because how are you going to know that this individual is going to do this to your children? You know what I mean? Because people lie. We know that people lie. They can tell you one thing and do another. You know what I mean? Hey, Sirius, how you doing? Thank you for being here. Alex, thank you for being here. Texas Rondi. That's yeah. He's wanted. Texas said I read they had plastic bags on their heads. Yeah, so that's probably how he killed them, and that's so sad. That is so sad. I don't see how anybody can get to that point in life to take the life of a child. I really don't. I really don't. My short video has his face as wanted. Very good. Get the word out. Get the word out. He had zip ties too. Yeah, the word needs to be brought out because I mean this guy needs to be caught. We need to all bond together in the true crime community and spread the word. We do have that capability to reach a lot of people in a short period of time. Maybe somebody will see him, maybe somebody will hear, and he'll be caught. He'll be caught. You know, let me. I was gonna read, but I think this will be a good topic for a little bit. Then I'll read a little bit, then we'll call it a night. Let me go ahead and play the video that I did this morning just in case you guys didn't watch it. Um, that way you can, if there's anybody in here that doesn't know about this case, they can be on the lookout for it at least. I called him Travis Decker, right? I think I get it's the right name. Hold on a second. Let's get a phone call from New York. I wonder who that's from. Anybody from New York calling me? Well, here's the video that I made this morning. It does have music and stuff in it, but I'm not going to get a copyright because it's the original stuff. So let's watch this a little bit. Y'all with me? Y'all cool with that? Here we go.
Travis Decker is wanted for the murder of his 3 young daughters. He is 5 foot 8 inches tall, 190 pounds. Brown eyes. He was last seen wearing light shirt, dark shorts. If you see this man, be in extreme caution, could be armed and dangerous. Call Wenatchee Police Department or 911.
All right, let's get to an update on just a horrible and tragic story from Washington State where 3 young sisters, they were found dead in a remote campground. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Chanel Call, who's following this story for us from the newsroom. Chanel, what do we know about what happened and where the search for the girl's father is at this time?
Hey, Mugo, good to see you this morning.
Some disturbing details in this story. Those 3 sisters were apparently reported missing in Wenatchee, Washington State last Friday night. Local police, Mugo, say a woman called in reporting that those 3 girls had not returned, this after a planned custody visit with their father. Police say 9-year-old Peyton.
Okay, so it was a planned visit with their father. So it wasn't like it was something that was nefarious that the mom would have thought, well, you know what? Everything's good. She called. She called to check, and I mean, that's all really somebody can do. I don't know what else she could have done. I bet she feels terrible about everything that's gone on to this point. Wouldn't y'all
Station 1
agree?
hour. 452 calories.
Hold on a second, I forgot to turn this off. Had y'all heard I burned 452 calories in an hour of exercising? Always forget to turn that off. Sorry about that, guys. Here we go. Let's continue on.
8-year-old Evelyn and 5-year-old Olivia were all found dead later in a remote campground. Their father, 32-year-old Travis Decker, he is still missing, Mugo. And despite that phone call to police reporting those girls missing, an Amber Alert notably was never sent out for them. Here's more on that from Wenatchee Police Captain Brian Chance.
An endangered and missing person alert, an EMPA, was activated by the Washington State Patrol at approximately 4 o'clock p.m. I want to explain a little bit that the endangered and missing person alert does generate a flyer that goes out to all the contacts through that State Patrol missing and endangered person unit, so that goes statewide. As well, the information for the alert is posted on the reader boards that I'm sure everybody's familiar with on the state highways.
So again, Mugo, a missing and endangered person report has now been sent out for Decker. He is wanted for 3 counts of first-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping. Police say he is a former military member, and this is someone who they say has extensive training.
So, based on what we heard, if this was Idaho, we were talking about the aggravators for the death penalty. Let me pick your brains a little bit. Would this individual be liable for the death penalty if he is apprehended? If Washington State has aggravators, kind of like Idaho, would he meet some of those aggravators? You be the judge of that.
At this point, Mugo, they do not know whether or not he's armed, but they do believe he may pose a risk if approached. A $20,000 reward is also now being offered up for any
Came
information.
home with shadows in his stare, no love in his step, just cold midnight air. Wife was sleeping, kids were dreaming free, but he walked in like a ghost with no empathy. Pictures on the wall, memories they made, now soaked in silence. The warmth starts to fade, no notes, no signs of a tear or a crack. Just a monster with a plan, never looking back. No mercy in his face, just ice and rage. A dark heart setting fire to the family page. No regrets, no cries, no final goodbyes.
I forgot about that.
Echoes of the innocent under blood red skies. To kill your own blood, that's hell's own kiss. There ain't no redemption in a world like this. He hit the highway with the dawn at his heels. Fake plates, black hoodie, not feeling real. News flash playing on the motel screen. The faces of the ones he killed frozen in scream. The world shook, but he just lit a smoke. Eyes dead like the pistol. He never spoke. No rhyme, no reason, no twisted cause. Just the devil in a man breaking all God's laws. No mercy in his face, just ice and rage. A dark heart setting fire to the family page. No regrets, no cries, no final goodbyes. Just echoes of the innocent under blood red skies. To kill your own blood, that's hell's own kiss. There ain't no redemption in a world like this. What kind of beast breaks the bones of trust? What kind of man turns love to dust? You can run from the law, disappear in the wind, but the souls you erase still scream from within. No mercy in his veins, no soul to save. Every mile just drags him closer to the grave. He won't pray, won't fall, won't ever confess, but the silence of
So 5'8", 190 pounds, black hair, ponytail, brown eyes. So I'm going to show you the updated photos that we have of him because people need to be aware of this. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody watches my channel or whatever, but you know, you just never know who is watching. So this is one of the photos that I saw today that is an updated. And somebody mentioned also that, people look different in every photo that they take. But you have to be mindful of the tattoos. I can't zoom in because this is on my page, but you have to be mindful of the tattoos. He obviously has a tattoo on his right forearm, and he has something on his left forearm. So he looks to have shaven a little bit, it looks like, and obviously he's wearing a bandana in that picture. He doesn't look very, very heavy. See, it looks like he's shaved and groomed up a little bit. He looks even different in this photo than he did in the last photo. So I also saw this thing where he was captured on a ring camera. Did y'all notice that? Watching um any other footage that you may have watched in the last couple days? Um, I think he was caught on a ring camera. I think that's what I saw. And thank you for that, Texas. I totally forgot about that. Otherwise, Koberger would have been, eligible for the death penalty in Washington if that's where he would have committed the crime. But once again, there's that other picture, and be on the lookout for those tattoos. I mean, people can shave their head, they can shave their facial hair, they can wear sunglasses, whatever, but these tattoos don't go away. So they're permanent markers for people. So if anybody's watching this and is interested in this case, be on the lookout. And it also looks like he may have dyed his beard, his goatee, his little Fu Manchu type thing, and his mustache. Because that doesn't look natural to me. So that's that. What do y'all think about this case? You think it's going to be something that's going to go long term, or do you believe that they're going to catch him or that he's possibly going to take himself out? What do y'all think? And then I will get on with the book. Give me some feedback. The delay is terrible, I swear. So I'm sitting here waiting. Okay, come on, any day now. It's a terrible case. I'm not minimizing that one bit. You think he'll take himself out? I believe so also. I mean, if he had the um mental issue that they're talking about that he had, I don't think he's going to be brought in alive. I mean, I could be wrong. Y'all say take himself out. He may have already, he may have already been in the forest or somewhere and already done so. You know what I mean? So only time will tell. Only time will tell. So we're having really bad weather north of here. Lubbock was getting hit with a lot of thunderstorms and a lot of tornadoes up that way. So the people in the Lubbock area, hope that you guys are all right. Um, so there's no rain or anything over here yet. So I think the storms are just going to pass. I think he will delete or delete by cop. That's another great theory right there as well. I mean, it's possible. You just never know. But we will keep our eyes and our ears on this case. So if you guys hear anything, um, or if you find some new information that's pretty new or hasn't been put out there, email it to me and I'll present it on the next show so we can keep up to date and keep people up to date with this stuff because we see and hear so much stuff we just don't know what's legit and what's not. So if you guys are one of those that does a lot of watching the news and current cases and stuff like that, um, feel free to email me. My email's on the channel, um, little description thing. Were they camping? I I don't know. In that article that I put in there in that song, it said they were there to meet up to run a 5K. So I don't think they were camping or they were. I think possibly they were gonna do that, but I think he took them out before they even got a chance to do any of that. They obviously didn't do the 5K or any of that. Yeah, he didn't have them long. I read he was living in his truck. Yeah, that's what I saw too. So I mean, we just never know if it's just terrible. It's just terrible to think about all these murders. I just hope that they don't turn on the mom. I hope YouTube don't turn on the mom and start to, hey Leslie, good evening to you. I hope they don't turn on the mom and start to side with the guy that killed the little girl because that's terrible if anybody does that. To turn on the mom. What could she have done different than she did based on what we've heard so far? I mean, we can all sit there and say, well, she didn't do this or she didn't do that, or in my opinion, this or in my opinion, that. But you know what? The lady contacted the police. She isn't in charge of the Amber Alert. She isn't in charge of any of that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not like she could have done anything else. Very good, PKC. I like that. I would put more blame on the court that ordered unsupervised visits. Yes, indeed. There will be a few, of course. There's always those that just want to be contrarian and they want to go against the grain to get just rambling going on about nothing. It won't be long before mom was on dope and that's why the dad had him and blah blah blah. Or could dad have been, doing drugs and that's why he killed them and all this and that and the other. It's just terrible how people side and they start making up, well, they could have, would have, should have, did this. They could have done that. They should have done this. Well, I mean, I understand that people want to talk about it, but don't add craziness to it already. It's already a terrible case. So this is day 5 of the manhunt. And I hear there's another one too going on. I think there's one going on in the Ozark. I saw very briefly about that, but that's over here in this area by Arkansas and all that. I think that's where the Ozark Mountains are, if I'm not mistaken. But I think there's a manhunt going on there as well. I'm not sure, but I thought I saw something that was talking about that the other day. There's just so much that goes on a daily basis. You can't cover it all. You know what I mean? I'm not a news channel, so I'm not gonna like play news clips all day long. You know what I mean? Because you guys can go and watch the news yourself. You don't need to for me to play somebody else's live. So let's go ahead and continue on with the reading. Are y'all cool with that? Is that the former sheriff that escaped? Yes. Yes, there's a individual that escaped in the Ozarks, and and they're tracking him. Yeah, I saw that the other day, so I was like, okay, what's going on with that? It is the former sheriff. Yeah, so maybe we can keep up with those two cases and do some reports. Yeah, he does for reals. He does for reals. And imagine being in these towns not knowing anything of what's going on. You don't know anything. You're just, because some of these areas are really remote. That's why I've never wanted to live in the country. I've never wanted to live in the country because of that. Hey, Doodlebug, nice to see you. Um, you mean these two Ozarks in Idaho now? There's one in the guy that's killed these three little girls is in Washington. I saw that former sheriff is on. They're doing a manhunt with him in the Ozark. So it's like, I mean, there's a lot going on right now. There really is. There's a lot of things that you know law enforcement has a lot of things going on in their lives. And there's a lot of good people, a lot of good channels that are reporting on all this stuff because it does need to be reported. For some reason, people get their news and updates on YouTube now rather than the local news, which I find that interesting. But I mean, I'm glad to get their news somewhere because it is the local news. It's just being broadcast a day or two later. You know what I mean? Unless they go live. So let's go ahead and are y'all good with me reading tonight, or y'all want to continue to talk about these two cases? Because I can pull up some stuff about the Ozark. And I can always read this book some other time if y'all want. I mean, it's your show pretty much. So, what do y'all want me to do? Give me your opinions. What would you rather me do? You want to go? You want me to pull up the Ozark stuff, do some reporting on it, or do you want me to read, or do you want me? Well, I mean, it's up to y'all. It's your show. You know what I mean? Well, even if we take the L, Texas, we still got one more game tomorrow, hopefully. All right. We got two read announcing the game. Okay. We're glad to see you, Doodlebug. It's been a while, but there's been a lot of drama. And I don't know if you know about it, but that individual that causes a lot of drama and then acts like a victim, he's been doing the most lately. So anyways. So I'm gonna read for a little bit. Um When he got out, he started taking courses at North. Oh, good. We were talking about this earlier in Daniels. When he got out, he started taking courses at Northampton Community College in Monroe County. He was studying psychology. Sometime around 2015, he went on a Tinder date with a young woman named Haley. After Koberger was arrested, she used TikTok to tell the world her story of their night together, and then later appeared on multiple networks to tell it again. She said the date was going relatively smoothly at first. They went on to a theater to see an action movie, and Koberger was behaving politely. He was quiet, but not unusually so, and he held the door for her when they entered the theater. After the movie, Koberger drove Haley back to the dorm at nearby Penn State Hazleton. He invited himself inside, and Haley decided that would be fine. She was not interested in having sex with him, but she was open to extending their evening. They watched another movie on Netflix. Koberger, she said, kept tickling her and trying to touch her in other small ways, which she didn't like. When she asked him to stop and confronted him about putting his hands on her, Koberger turned almost grave. I'm not touching you, he said. Haley now wanted to get him out of her dorm room. Like him, she was socially awkward, and instead of simply asking him to leave, she pretended she needed to use the bathroom. Koberger followed her and stood outside the door. Let me ask you women right quick because we've heard this a lot. So I'm going to ask you women in the chat. If you were in this position, whether you're a full grown woman or whether you're in college, I don't think it really matters. If you have somebody that you've invited over and then you tried to pretend to go throw up so they'd leave, would it creep you out if they followed you to the bathroom and stood outside the door? Yes, Callie, some women don't like to be touched. Some women don't like to play like that. Sometimes you have to read the room pretty good. You got to read it, you know? The birthing hips thing is very older verbiage. In today's world, it would be equal to you got a pretty mouth. Yeah, yes, very much so. I would have never invited him in if he already gave me weird vibes. Yes, it would. Time for my weapon. Leave. So you're in a general consensus that you would have been like, okay, Brian, you need to leave. I'm getting sick in here. You need to go. But she said the author stated that she was socially awkward also. So I mean, I kind of get it, but he followed her to the bathroom. Was he concerned? Was he being creepy? What was in his intent? You know what I mean? Squeal like a pig, boy. That movie never gets old. You sure do got a pretty mouth. Okay. The fact that he told her he's not touching her when he was obviously touching her. So did he not realize what he was doing or was he gaslighting her? You know what I mean? Okay, he followed her and stood outside the door. Feeling more and more uncomfortable, Haley pretended to throw up. And the plan worked. Eventually, Koberger texted her that he was leaving. An hour later, out of nowhere, Koberger texts Haley to tell her she has good birthing hips. Creeped out. That never gets old. Creeped out. She ended her contact with him. It took the good birthing hips for her to say, okay, you've gone too far. This is where I draw the line, buddy. Everything else you did, I could have worked with that. But the birthing hips, that was the last straw. I'm over it. Have a good life. Sometime after that, Koberger briefly dropped out of the community college to go to rehab again. So this was in 2015. His friends from that period said he had continued to struggle with drugs, but when he got clean for the second time, it appeared to stick. He renewed his coursework in Northampton while also working for his old high school as a backup custodian and part-time security guard. See, I didn't know he was a custodian. I thought it was just a security guard. I thought that was full-time. He was 22. By 24, he had earned his associate degree in psychology. By now, Michael and Mary Ann Koberger had moved their family to the three-bedroom home in Albrightsville, still in Monroe County. The house, although 2 stories, was on the smaller sides at approximately 1,300 square feet, but it sat on an acre of wooded land in the community of similarly tidy utilitarian homes. It was a nice, orderly place to live. Koberger enrolled in DeSales University in Center Valley, 45 minutes from his family home, and pursued his bachelor's degree, also in psychology. So, one thing that I want to alliterate here, he went to get his associates in psychology, so he's going for his bachelor's in psychology. So, he must have been doing the minor in criminal justice because if he's majoring in psychology, that means he's going to study the mind, how people think, how people react to social cues, things like that. So, you know, yeah, that always gets me. I like that comment right there. He was probably saying that to get back at her for not liking him. I'm not sure alone though. Waiting on that trial. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready for the trial myself, Doodlebug. I really am. So, where was I? So psychology seems to be his major, all right? It says, the thought of using heroin soon disgusted him. He said in the Facebook messages with his friend Jack Bayless, who would later share those messages with the New York Times. I only used when I was in deep suicidal state, Koberger wrote. I have since really learned a lot. Not a person alive could convince me to use it. So there, out of his own words, is the reasoning behind the use of heroin. Obviously, it calmed him down enough or, took him out of that suicidal state, and he didn't do it. Around that same time, according to employment records subpoenaed from the Pleasant Valley School District, Koberger had become a diligent and dependable security guard, working the weekend shift to make sure his old high school was buttoned up properly. He even helped save the life of a staff member having a medical emergency. Koberger graduated from his program at DeSales in 2020, having earned a bachelor's degree in psychology, but remained at DeSales to obtain his master's. He shifted his focus from psychology, here we go, to criminal justice for his graduate studies, and he was in the right place to do so. DeSales University had a renowned criminal justice program. It even had a crime scene house on campus, which was used for homicide simulations and the collection of evidence. And it had Dr. Catherine Ramblin, a forensic psychologist and an expert in serial killers. Ramblin has spent many years corresponding with the infamous BTK killer. The two eventually collaborated on a book, Confession of a Serial Killer. Ramblin had also written many other books exploring the darkest reaches of the criminal mind, attempting to understand human predators and mass murderers. She was one of Koberger's professors. The former heroin addict was a star student, according to another of his professors, and in 2022 received his master's degree after 2 years of study in the program. He was then accepted into Washington State University's PhD program in criminal justice and criminology. So really, Brian didn't have a lot of criminal justice stuff until he received his bachelor's and then shifted into his master's. That's when he went into criminal justice and criminology. So to state that he was a criminal justice student makes it sound like he was pursuing criminal justice the whole way, which is not true at all. That's interesting to me. Is that not interesting to you guys? Because didn't you get that impression that he was a criminal justice student the whole time? It said Ramblin had also written many other books exploring the darkest reaches of the criminal mind, attempting to understand human predators and mass murderers. She was one of Koberger's professors. I just said that. Okay. He was then accepted in the Washington State PhD program in criminal justice and criminology, where he had also been awarded a teaching assistantship. His life seemed to be turned around. On Reddit that summer, reportedly as part of finishing his DeSales master's thesis, Koberger posted a survey he had devised, soliciting criminal offenders to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision making when committing a crime. Okay, so that is more on the psychological theory than the criminal justice side. You get what I'm saying? So he was preparing to he was preparing to those questions where he was saying, how did you feel before you went into the house? How did you what were you thinking when you left your residence to go commit the crime? Things like that. That is more psychological stuff than criminal justice stuff. So, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense. He wrote with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. There we go. Survey questions included: why did you choose that victim or target over others? So if he was going to answer that question himself, you could ask him that. Why, instead of using why, I would ask, what made you choose that victim or target over any others? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your home? Dr. Bricado and Chris McDonough had talked about the questionnaire one night on their live, and I was listening to them break it down. And they were saying, did he prepare for this question? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your home? Was he asking this so therefore he could prepare himself? Because I I don't believe that people understand his level of lack of attachment with normal everyday feelings and emotions and things of that nature. I believe I'm no expert, but I would think that by asking this, he wants to understand, how did you prepare before leaving your house? What did you do? How did you approach the victim or the target? After arriving, what steps did you take prior to locating the victim or the target? These are very specific questions. So, in asking these very specific questions, does it not sound like he was preparing emotionally to be able to attach himself once it happened? It said, after committing the crime, what were you thinking and feeling? Well, we saw at 10:30 in the morning, that's what we saw. So, what would that thought have been? Do you believe that he was happy that and he was able to go through with whatever he wanted to do? How did you leave the scene? There's another very specific question. How did you leave the crime scene? How was your life right after or how was your life before the crime occurred? Doesn't this sound like questions that he was trying to answer for himself? Because if you're asking these questions of other criminals, everybody's going to have a different perspective on what, why, and how. I guess you're going to try to pick out the best answer. Because if you have no clue, how are you going to get those clues? How are you going to get your answers? Am I making sense here? I think the survey plays a huge part in this. Just my opinion. And your opinion is valuable here, Doodlebug. Don't ever have to apologize for it. You know, speak freely. You're safe here. Okay? And everybody else who comes in here, you don't have to apologize for your thoughts or your beliefs. I enjoyed the adult conversation in here. It says chapter 42. Further examination of the initial Koberger traffic stop in Indiana shows sunshine on the face of Michael Koberger in the passenger seat of the white Hyundai sedan beside his only son. They were stopped on the shoulder of a highway, and Michael had unrolled his window for the sheriff's deputy who approached them. Then he pushed aside the visor that had been south facing to try to block the sun coming through the passenger side front window. Michael's mouth was slightly parted as if forming a question. Brian looked tense, his whole body tight, seeming his face rigid in anticipation of learning why his vehicle had been stopped. "You're right up on that van, man," the deputy had said to Brian, whose face seemed to relax. Well, if he was tense, is there any thought to you guys on why he might have been a little tense? What do y'all think? What are some reasons he could have been a little tense? The Hyundai's plates had been recently registered in Washington state. The officer asked where they had been driving to. They were looking for Thai food, said Brian, pointing forward. See, that doesn't even add up. He asked where they had been driving to, and they were looking for Thai food. So, I mean, it kind of does, but it really doesn't. That's just an odd answer. They were looking for Thai food. But then his father explained that they'd been driving cross country, actually. Well, we were coming from WSU, Michael had said, using his thumb to point backward. He seemed proud of his son's education, made small talk about the university. Brian nodded his head, clean shaven, briefly looking straight forward while his father talked. Michael's chin had a row of gray hairs across the lower ridge that looked bristly in the shade of the officer's body cam, which now partially blocked the sun. Brian seemed ready to go, but his father was uncomfortably allowing the interaction to linger. During the second stop of the Koberger men in Indiana, this time only 10 minutes later by a state trooper, Michael, with the sun now directly in his face like a hot flash through his eyeglasses, looked genuinely confused in the body cam footage. His window was unrolled and his head was cocked backward and his mouth fully open. Brian seemed confused as well and wound even more tightly now. His mouth was open and his deeply set eyes seemed full of question marks. He kept his hands on the knees of his blue jeans in plain sight of the trooper. Again, he'd been told that he was tailgating, and again Michael made more small talk, but beneath the drone of white noise from both the road and the conversation his father was having. Brian looked as if his skin were crawling. By the end of that month, Michael and his wife Mary Ann would stand gobsmacked in their family home after police had shattered their windows and breached their doors, and dozens of tactical assets had stormed their house. The cops had seized personal items and documents. They had seized portions of their son's white Hyundai Elantra, and worst of all, the cops had seized their son. On January 3rd, 2023, Michael and Mary Ann Koberger arrived at the Monroe County Courthouse to witness their son's extradition hearing. He was being sent back to Idaho, where he would be charged with 4 counts of first-degree homicide in what was then the nation's most publicized murder investigation. The idea must have been unthinkable to them. They were dropped off beside the courthouse in a black SUV. Michael wore a black medical-style mask covering his face and a trapper hat with ear flaps and an extended bill pulled over low to shade his eyes, presumably from the media cameras pointed in his direction. His wife's face was similarly obscured by a black mask and the faux fur-lined hood of her black winter coat, which was pulled tightly around her head. Brian Koberger, shackled and handcuffed and wearing a red gel issue jumper, was led into the courtroom by sheriff's deputies, who had held him by the arm. His parents and 2 sisters, both in their early 30s, watched him from the gallery. Reporters who'd been allowed in the room without their cameras said that Koberger had mouthed, "I love you," to his family. His public defender at the time, Jason Labar, had issued a statement to the media on his behalf. Mr. Koberger is eager to be exonerated of these charges and looks forward to be resolving these matters as promptly as possible, Labar said. In a later interview with NBC, Labar added that the family don't believe it to be Brian. They can't believe this. They're obviously shocked. And their lives had been upended. In the ensuing months, photos of the Kobergers showing up for their son's hearing would spread across social and traditional media outlets. The paparazzi also snuck through the woods toward the family home and took photos with a long lens, including several of Koberger's father cleaning up the mess left behind after the law enforcement raid. Let me ask you guys something. Do you believe that the way the police did that, the way they arrested him, did that sound any more aggressive than any other raid that you've ever heard of in the early morning hours, whether it be a drug dealer's house, whether it be a person that has several warrants, maybe a warrant roundup or something like that. Does that sound like a more aggressive? Did it sound like his was more aggressive than all these others that you've ever heard of? Or does it sound about the same as what you've heard and seen? What do you think? Let me know while I continue reading. Um, he wore utility gloves and used a shop vacuum to suction shard the glass from the lawn. His broken windows now had duct tape across them, covering the holes. He wore a gray sweatshirt with a graphic on the back that read, "Life is good." Weeks after Koberger's arrest, his family posted a now widely decimated statement in response to the media attention on them. First and foremost, we care deeply for the four families who have lost their precious children. There are no words that can equally express the sadness we feel, and we pray each day for them, they wrote. We will continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family, we will love and support our son and our brother. They asked for privacy. In previous years, Marianne Koberger had written op-eds for the local newspaper, speaking out against school shootings, abortion, and the death penalty. She had also frequently taken to Reddit, posting about the anxiety she felt of her son's future. She worried about his lack of friendship, his lack of direction. On that day that Brian Koberger left to pursue his PhD, Marianne wrote to a fellow Reddit user, "My son will be in Pullman in the eastern part of the state, quite close to the Idaho border. He knows absolutely no one, and we have no family there. I worry about him being lonely." She was just a mother after all, looking after her son and looking forward to the future she presumed him to be building for himself. He was 28, but still her boy, off to school and out of her reach. Chapter 43. Let me see what you guys answered. Uh, okay, sounds pretty standard. Said no, been through a lot worse. It was just one person they were after. Okay, pretty standard. No, that would be exactly how things work when they could have an aisle. Sounds like other situations. I'm from Los Angeles. It would be the same or less harsh for me from what I've seen the whole time I lived there. Okay. No, seems like usually when you hear about similar raid, it is wrongdoing. Someone was shot or the wrong address. Okay. Does anyone know what faith they are? I meant an unaliver. Okay. You can say any word you want. You can say murderer. You can say killer, rapist, drugs, normal words. You don't have to censor yourself here. Okay? Before I continue to chapter 43, I'm going to ask your opinion on something. Okay? Because this matters a lot to what people's opinion of this case is, I believe. So let me ask you guys, do you believe in the death penalty or do you not believe in the death penalty? And once again, it doesn't matter either way. I just am curious to know which side you're on because I believe that that's why there's so much division in this case because there's some side that don't and some side that do. So if you believe in the death penalty, then it's a lot easier for you to see that someone should be able to receive the harshest punishment if indeed the jury does find them guilty. Now, if you don't believe in the death penalty, then you would be doing kind of like the defense is doing, trying to push all the narrative to get the death penalty taken off so that he could have a lesser charge. You know what I mean? So, you know, do we have, I absolutely do. I do. Yes, I do. Okay. How about the rest of you that are in here? Do y'all believe in the death penalty? And do you believe that, that's one of the reasons why there's so much division in this case is because of that? You know, I agree in the death penalty, especially in a case like this. Melissa says no. Okay. No way. All right. Well, that's fair enough. I mean, like I said, everybody's opinion is valuable. So I believe that that's why there's so much differentiation between, you know, both sides that are talking about the same case. Because if you don't believe in the death penalty, then you believe that, you have to go above and beyond to show facts on why that is applicable. A killing or whatever just wouldn't be enough. And that's one of the reasons why last night I went over the aggravators to kind of educate people a little bit so they could be able to understand the death penalty aggravators, not to change their mind, but to just give them an understanding of how an individual is charged with that harsh of a sentence potentially based on the aggravators. You get what I'm saying? And I can respect that, Melissa. I really can. I really can. I'm glad that you can speak openly and that you can, give your opinion, and that's fine. We all have the ability to have a thought process, right? And that's what makes us individuals. Chapter 43. Brian Koberger's two-bedroom apartment at the Steptoe Village complex in Pullman, Washington was on the second floor of a 12-plex unit that was essentially divided in half, with 6 units on each side of the building. Up the center of Koberger's half ran an outdoor stairwell with a landing on each floor, where a bicycle could be locked or conversation made between tenants. Koberger moved into the unit G201 in the summer of 2022 and began to get used to living in Pullman among the quaint city's population of approximately 34,000, including its Washington State University students. Can you imagine the person who's lived in that apartment after Koberger got arrested? They've surely rented that out. I mean, wouldn't that be interesting if they found anything hidden in there? You get what I'm saying? Would you be able to live in an apartment that somebody had either died in or somebody that had murdered somebody lived in prior, a house or, apartment or something like that? Kind of like John Wayne Gacy's home. It was torn down and rebuilt, but think of all those bodies that were under that house. So essentially, the new house was built on a burial ground. I don't know if I could live in that house. I don't know about you guys, but share your thoughts with me on that. I mean, there's some things that I just don't mess with, and I mean, burial grounds is one of them. I believe in, kind of like this area I used to live in. There was a lot of Native Americans, um, Mexican soldiers, American Civil War soldiers. There's a lot of battles that were fought there. And, I had a friend that I worked with, and she told me, she said, she woke up one night and she was laying there because she felt something or somebody. It felt like somebody sat on the foot of the bed, and she opened her eyes and she saw the outline of a man. But she said, I didn't scream, I didn't yell, I was frozen. And she said, this man laid next to her. And when she looked at him, he was looking straight up. She said he was dressed like what you see in the westerns in the old days. He didn't have a shirt on. He had like a headband on. He had war paint. He had the pants and the moccasins and everything. And she was like, "Oh my God." I was like wondering if I was dreaming or not. And she said when she closed her eyes to blink, she opened them again and he was gone. Would that not have freaked you out? Would that not have freaked you out? You know, I, those burial grounds, I try to stay away from that, but I believe in that for whatever reason. You know what I mean? I can't. I can't. Let me continue on. I know I was getting off, off, off point there, but I wanted to ask you all that. The campus abutted Pullman's old downtown area, which was sleepy as coffee shops and sprawling used bookstores inhabiting a few tree-lined blocks alongside the abandoned Moose Lodge building and other architectural relics of a century ago. The Criminal Justice and Criminology Department was inside Wilson Short Hall, a stone and brick centerpiece with an ornate entryway across from the Student Union building. Koberger's office, a perk of his teaching assistantship, was on the below ground floor of Wilson Short. Yeah, I'm going to go off camera so I can turn these lights off. They're bugging me, but I'm still here. All right, so let me turn some of these lights off. Makes it easier to read. All right, here we go. Koberger's office, a perk of his teaching assistantship, was on the below ground floor of Wilson Short. Early in his first semester at WSU, Koberger became acquainted with his second floor neighbor, Christian Martinez, a tough looking military veteran who had a large ornate tattoo covering the front of his neck like a tapestry. Koberger seemed to enjoy talking to Martinez about criminology. Martinez told the Law and Crime Network months later. They weren't good friends, Martinez said, but they were friendly and would chat on landing between their apartments. And this is the individual that his father met and asked him if he would befriend his son. This is the individual that he went to the pool party with and met more people at the pool party. So Christian, also his wife didn't really like Brian. Had been stated. I don't know about that, but this is the individual. If you don't know about Christian Martinez, he would talk about his studies like forensics and stuff and criminology stuff. Martinez said nothing had seemed particularly unusual about that. The week before school started, I met his dad in the parking lot. Martinez added, his dad was wanting to introduce me to Brian, and he said something. I don't remember the exact words he used to describe him, but it was something that was like, he has a hard time making friends, or he's kind of shy. Martinez's wife, however, didn't have a good feeling about Koberger. She felt like something was off. The way the hairs on the back of a human neck can sometimes stand up in danger, she didn't like her husband interacting with their new neighbor. But Martinez himself hadn't picked up on anything amiss. He wanted to help Koberger integrate more and even invited him to a pool party in nearby Moscow. A fellow partygoer named Zach Cartwright, who'd met Koberger there, told Law and Crime that the criminology student seemed socially awkward, standing off to the side of the festivities and observing instead of participating. But then a month later, Cartwright had a chance encounter with Koberger while both were hiking on a local trail. Koberger remembered exactly who Cartwright was, even though they'd barely spoken at the pool party. It was really weird how he approached me and the people I was with because he acted kind of like we were best friends, Cartwright said. It was like a reunion or something. He was really excited to see us, and I had no idea really who he was right at that second. Koberger was not fitting in socially, not in his extracurricular activities, and not within his teaching assistantship and PhD program. While he paid rigorous attention to his criminology courses, he seemed to make fellow students uncomfortable. B.K. Norton, who shared 4 classes with Koberger, told the Seattle Times, Brian was incredibly smart and talked about things that impressed him, impassioned him, but there was something off about him. According to Norton, Koberger had made disparaging remarks about the queer community, which had alienated his peers into relatively liberal leaning Pullman. I didn't socialize with him because he had made anti LGBTQ comments, and I am a queer individual, Norton said, and she told the New York Times. He sort of creeped people out because he stared and didn't talk much. But when he did, it was very intelligent, and he needed everyone to know he was smart. Another student told the Times that Koberger had been a mansplainer who was argumentative with his classmates, particularly women. Some of Koberger's students in the criminal law class he was helping to teach felt the same about his attitude toward women. Several said they were treated disparately and graded more harshly than their male counterparts. One said that Koberger had followed her to her car. Not even a month into the semester, WSU had reportedly opened an investigation into student complaints against Koberger. At the same time, he was being reprimanded for argumentative behavior with a workplace supervisor. The criminal law professor John Snyder, who was in charge of Koberger's assistantship. He had several verbal altercations with Snyder and, according to the leaked file, was put on improvement plan for violating norms of professional behavior. On campus, Koberger appeared to remain a lone wolf. Multiple students told news sources that he had seen several times in the student union building staring at his fellow students. So, I want to ask you also, because the student union building could have been at WSU, doesn't necessarily mean he was at the U of I student union building. I always assumed it was U of I, but this could have been at WSU, and he just made it sound like that. So it might have not been the one at U of I. It said on campus, which is WSU. Koberger appeared to remain a lone wolf. Multiple students told news sources he was seen several times in the student union building staring at his fellow student. So that's not at U of I, which I assumed it was, but it's not. It's at WSU. But he was also seen in another. Okay, here we go. He was also seen in another student union building across state lines at the University of Idaho. Although he had no known scholarly, social, or professional business to conduct there. All right. I knew I read that somewhere. So he was at both student unions, which, I mean, that's what college kids do. They go to the student union to study, to hang out, to look, people watch. I mean, maybe interact with people, make friends, whatever. I mean, I really don't see that as being that big of a deal. I really don't. Not that. Mm-mm. I can't really agree with that. Tell me what y'all think regarding it. I think that's looking a little too much into it at that point. Tell me what y'all think. He wouldn't look away if you caught him staring, a sophomore named Chelsea had told a People.com reporter about seeing Koberger on the U of I campus. Maybe at the U of I campus he had no business there, but at WSU I wouldn't see that as being a problem. Even at U of I. Maybe he wanted to get away from people at WSU and felt like U of I was, even though it wasn't that far, a different campus, different atmosphere. Maybe he felt comfortable there. No telling what the hell it was. I mean, I really don't see a lot of disparaging similarities in any of that, but I could be wrong. I mean, y'all could see something I don't see. What do y'all think about that? PKC says probably both. I hope you're feeling better, Mountain Mama. Thank you for being here. Like he wanted you to notice that he was looking at you. He didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't say anything, just stared. Another student said almost the same thing. The Koberger was in the student union building at U of I and was really intense, staring. He made me uncomfortable. This pattern of awkward behavior around women, followed by rejection, had been emerging for over a decade now. Okay, so I can see that as possibly being a part of his behavior, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm not trying to change my opinion on anything. I don't want y'all to think that. But there's stuff like this that makes for a lot of conjuncture in this case. You know what I mean? It makes for a lot of conjuncture, and you know, it just I don't really see this being that big of a deal. There's a lot of people that are not socially social butterflies. They would probably be seen as socially awkward. Does that make you a killer? Probably not. But I believe that the psychological aspect of Mr. Koberger could have led to the murders. All this extra stuff over here, it has really no room for any of it other than the story, like Melissa D said. That semester, an investigative source told People.com Koberger slipped into the Instagram DMs of one of the young women who lived in the King Road house. He messaged her repeatedly. Hey, how are you? He asked. She didn't answer. So that makes you wonder if he really did that. How did he know her name? How did he know her name? I like that comment, PKC. If he went to the U of I, I'm surprised he didn't get parking tickets. Most parking is permit only. Very good point. I don't know because he did get that one beautiful girl's number at the pool party, yes. But what I'm asking is like being seen at the student union building. Okay, there's a lot of people that probably were seen at the student union building that were a little awkward. I don't know. I guess being a guy, I don't see the perspective of the woman. Once again, I'm not a woman. I've never been a woman, so I can't answer or even opine on how a woman would feel. That's why I asked for you women in the chat for your thoughts and your opinions. Would that make you freaked out a little bit if somebody just stared at you? Would that make you freaked out as they were talking? Would it freak you out if you were talking with your friends at another table or walking by and somebody just staring at you, doesn't say nothing, doesn't break glance? Of course you remember him. Maybe that was part of his game. Maybe that was part of his game. We don't know. The staring would make me uncomfortable. Okay, thank you. Little creepy. I'm not sure if it would freak me out, but it would be a red flag. Okay. And that's what I'm asking is like, we can't say that every little thing that this book is saying or what we've heard in the past is necessarily important enough to be a pattern of behavior that would constitute, evidence. Because a lot of it wouldn't, honestly. A lot of it is just what it is. It just, we're hearing about it. Depends on who he's staring at, to be honest. Me being a guy, and I'm not saying this to be perverted or anything, but me being a guy, until I had my girlfriend, you see a pretty girl walk by in a pair of yoga pants or, a pair of tight jeans or something, you're not necessarily going to break your stare, even if they catch you. You're kind of like in a trance. And that's a guy impression, okay? Now that I have a girlfriend, I don't do that anymore, okay? I only look at her. Let me see what else you're saying. There's an I want you stare other. Yeah, exactly. Depends on who you're staring to. I mean, some people stare when they feel left out or feeling anxiety, but not to that extreme. Okay. Uh huh. What? You don't believe me? Will you cut me an apple and bring me my coconut peanut butter out of the fridge with the root? What? No. Still like yoga pants, huh? Yeah, I do. I do. Um, but honestly, I don't do that. But when you're single, I mean, like Doodle just said, many guys just don't know how to talk to women. They really don't. And not excusing any of these behaviors whatsoever. I don't want y'all to get it twisted. I still believe what I believe. I'm just trying to venture off a little bit to kind of make all this madness that has been stated that really doesn't have any effect on what the trial is going to be about or not. If we can kind of trim the fat a little bit, then we can probably get back to the original evidence that really does matter. And all this conjuncture will be out of the way. You know what I mean? He said, I don't know. That would be awkward regardless. What did Sirius say? It would definitely depend on who we're staring to. Yeah. I kind of felt that was bullets. I've done that before too. I've been texting to somebody and like, oh my God, I texted that in the chat or almost did. It's all good. Thank you for being here. Chapter 44. On October 14, 2022, 1 month before the King Road homicides, Brian Koberger was stopped at 4:30 in the afternoon while driving his white Hyundai Elantra on the Washington State campus. The sun was shining, and the nearby pedestrians were wearing shorts and ball caps, backpacks, and tennis shoes. Koberger wore a business casual blue button down shirt and was clean shaven, with his dark hair neatly coiffed. The strobe lights of the police vehicle parked behind him flashed in his rearview mirror. I think you know why I stopped you, the female officer who approached his driver's side window explained. You ran the red light. What actually happened was was stuck in the middle of an intersection, Koberger began, so I was forced to make a left. Yeah, I was behind you the whole time, the officer interjected. A student in a plaid skirt with thigh-high throwback tube socks walked by, her backpack hanging heavily. Technically, you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason. If the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection and then you run the red light. She told him, Do you have your license on you? Koberger retrieved his driver's license, handing it to her to the window. Do you have your registration and insurance? He dug around in his vehicle for the documents she requested, found them, and handed them over. The officer's body cam footage showed the documents would be expiring in November. Would you explain to me a little bit further, Koberger chanced? In Pennsylvania, when you're stuck in an intersection, you have to make the left. So what the appropriate thing for me to have done, Ben? Just back up? He used his thumb to point backward as if reversing into a lane. You're not supposed to block an intersection like that in Washington. So just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation, she said. Then you're running a red light, so it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go. Koberger nodded his head in understanding, his large eyes surveying the nearby streets and then landing laser focus on the officer again. Yeah, there was a little confusion, Koberger said, explaining that he had initially thought the oncoming traffic was slowing to let him turn. Someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn, so I thought that maybe they were letting me go through. That was when he'd pulled up to the intersection to make a left turn, but had gotten caught when the light went red on him. Oh, the officer said. Did you see that? No, she told him. I would just advise, just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Koberger nodded his head cooperatively, but seemed to ignore her directive. In that situation, the best thing to do then would be to back up, he asked. So, do you believe that this traffic stop, he was being confrontational, or do you think he was just really confused? What do y'all think? Yeah, that's what I heard in the Dateline article as well, Farah. That he acted like the husband didn't really shouldn't have gotten onto him for anything, and then he went over and started staring at him again. Should have wrote his dumbass a ticket just for being a dork. No, that law is dumb. I think he was trying to get out of it. I think so too, but I mean, how hard is that to understand? You don't pull out into the intersection when it's yellow. It's either green with an arrow, or if it's green, you got to make sure that there's no oncoming traffic or there's nobody stuck in the intersection that's going to make you stuck. I mean, how hard is that? How hard is that to understand? Is this part of what they're talking about? Is the man is unable to really attach himself to what's happening in the present moment because he's too busy trying to understand it for clarity, but yet he's incapable of being even carrying out the most basic cues. You know what I mean? Like, she was pretty specific, you know? Yeah, the tailgating as well. I mean, the first time he warned him, and then he did it again. I think I'm going to stop right here, but let me read this next part right quick. Um, I don't know if they're the best thing to do in that situation because you're either going to go back up into somebody or you're going to run a red light. He nodded his head again. Yet, I was just slightly into the crosswalk, he told her. Jesus, Brian, read the room, bro. She's not ticketing you, but she's telling you I could give you 2 tickets right now for what you just did. It doesn't make a rip whether in Pennsylvania they have crosswalks or not. Uh-huh, she said. Where I'm from, Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks. So even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. There's like a certain margin within which you can actually place your vehicle. Yeah, the officer said, so I know laws vary state to state, but there's a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that. After a moment, Koberger said, I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to. Oh, yeah, no, I can find it for you. The officer interjected pleasantly. Koberger nodded his head again while the officer got back to inspecting his documentation. I'm just going to check your info. I'll try to find that law for you and I'll be right back. Thank you, he told her. The officer returned to her vehicle for approximately 3 minutes, where she first radioed in Koberger's driver's license info, emphasizing the spelling of his last name by using names for each letter. King, Ocean, Henry, Boy, Edward, Robert, George, Edward, Robert. She consulted a laminated cheat sheet of state driving law violations while waiting for his license to clear. Then she exited her vehicle and approached the Elantra's driver's side window again. Okay, so I found it. So I don't know. In Pennsylvania, where you go to find laws, but in Washington, it's called the Revised Code of Washington. She told Koberger, so it's RCW 46.61.202. No driver shall enter an intersection unless there is significant space on the other side of the intersection. So let me ask you once again, do you believe that he was just trying to get out of a ticket? Or do you believe he really could not attach with the woman? Which is common to men, which women officers play that I don't know and I'm sorry game. I think he was purposely playing ignorant in hopes she wouldn't give him a ticket. She didn't, did she? She gave him a warning, I think. I usually just say, yeah, and I know and smile. I'm the same way, Texas. I'm like, okay, whatever you want to say, you want to lecture me, I'll sit here and listen to it. Just don't give me a ticket. Give me a warning. Let me get about my business. I could see doing that 10, 15 years ago when lights were just red, yellow, and green. Anymore, most intersections have the arrow light so you aren't stuck through multiple cycles. Very true. Most of them have that blinking yellow light that you can go while it's blinking yellow. You know what I mean? I think he's argumentative in general. Could be. I think he couldn't attach with the thought that anyone would correct him about anything. Good point. Good point right there. Doodlebug, that is what I thought also, but it sounds like he got confrontational with the male Latol deputy. Do you think he has issues with law enforcement? I mean, it's deeply speculative, but, do you believe that Brian maybe has issues with law enforcement or being told what to do? I mean, you don't necessarily have to have issues with law enforcement to not be liked to be told what to do. You know what I mean? Maybe he doesn't like to be corrected. Maybe he doesn't like to be told what to do. Because there's a lot of men out there that don't like to be corrected by a female. And honestly, the more I think about it, it's like the more you listen to the way men talk about women on these platforms, it's almost like they don't like women. You know what I mean? And most individuals who talk about women like that have been scorned by a woman, and those are the ones that would be more apt to be in a domestic violence situation or even kill or hurt a woman. And that's what's sad. And I'm going to do a show on that in the near future. I had it set up for the Wednesday night thing, but I chose against it because it was kind of, I don't know. I felt like talking Idaho. And I believe that there's a lot of individuals that don't like to be corrected by a woman. They don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to take direction from women. And there's a lot of men that appear to degrade women these days. They don't like them, but they act like they're God's gift to women, but they don't like women. It's hard to it's hard to explain, you know. And it's it's awful. It really is. It's like you don't have to be the aggressor. I mean, you can take direction from anyone, you know. Um, we should be able to take directive from anybody in authority, whether we agree with it or not. And he also didn't he after that traffic violation Google Um, what are the grounds of what somebody can do when they pull you over? So to me, it sounded to me like he doesn't understand. I mean, I'm not trying to call him slow or anything. I'm just saying there's some people that are very book smart. They can read something, they can attach their mind, that part of their brain into what they're reading. They can apply it, hands-on knowledge, okay? That's kinetics or something like that. Um, and most, what is it? Antisocial people, um, sociopaths have that kinetic learning. They learn better by doing rather than being told or shown. Or sometimes you can show them one time and they grab it. Because you've shown them, so they memorize it. But when it comes to doing something on their own, they struggle because they don't have confidence in themselves or they really don't understand the application process. They're not very book smart, but that doesn't seem to be the case for Brian. Seems the other way around, you know? Truth in time, welcome. You said some male officers favor abusive men over women in domestic violence situations. Something about lawful detainment or unlawful detainment, but can't stay inside the lines in a coloring book. Yeah, pretty much. Texas. Pretty much. Good example. You should do a live or a video on autism relate to that behavior. I was just thrown off with them saying he has autism. I was too. I was too, Doodlebug. Um, I was as well. I don't know if you heard me the other night, but I was wondering if we could do a missing kid. Um, but they found her. I wanted you to do a missing person with me. It was Alyssa Petrov, but they found her. But I would like you to do a missing child with me if you ever want to, give me a little knowledge on one of them. Not that I want to venture down that line, but I want to be able to broadcast that as well on my channel if I can at any time. So just let me know. Um, yeah, there was a lot going on that night. That was the night where we had the three live streaming, and my email address is in the where you find the demographics of the channel. If you could just email me so I can have your email address, that way we can correspond and we can set something up if you'd like. Um, but yeah, his behavior really tripped me out, especially when it comes to kind of like reading about it and trying to understand it. Because not only in this book, but also with dealing with people in general, you get that point where you say, okay, did you not understand what I just told you? I asked you, like being a therapist, I can do a class with the juveniles, I can do a class with adults, and I can go over all the ramifications of behaviors and attitudes and consequences. And they'll look at you and they'll be like, yeah, 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 I understand. And then a week later, they're cutting off, whatever, and they're running away, or, the adults are absconding, they're getting drunk, they're getting high. And you think, well, you were just sitting in my class agreeing with me, and you were even sharing what I was talking about, but obviously it wasn't really permeating because you didn't understand it. And that is what is so that is what is so awful about all this is, people will sit there and nod their head, yes, 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 but then go and do exactly what you told them not to do, or not to do it that way, and then they get mad because you're correcting them because they really didn't listen. So how much is it that Brian may have not listened because he thought he already knew it, or he was smart enough to know it, or he should have known it. Was it a personality thing? Was it a power and control thing? Was it, those types of things where he didn't like to be redirected. Kelly says, I read so where there's antisocial personality disorder, it's a new term the medical community is now using to describe someone who is a psychopath or sociopath. You're right. With the juveniles, we call it deviant disorder or oppositional defiant disorder, which is just another term for what you're talking about right now. So they grow from oppositional defiant to antisocial, or psychopathy. It's power and control has a lot to do with it. And I believe that for whatever reason, there had to be somebody that reminded him of one of his parents, whether he had issues with men or he had issues with women. One of his parents was a domineering adult. He may have got along with them. I'm not saying he didn't get along, but there could have been some verbal abuse, there could have been some emotional abuse. So when he lashes out, there's a reenactment going on there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the male or the female. It could just be the female, and that behavior is being reenacted in a male. So that behavior would cause him to react, get angry, agitated, loud, correcting, all that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So if his mom was overbearing and domineering, anybody he crossed paths with in life that exhibited that type of behavior, it instantly turned him on the defensive and he'd automatically go into fight or flight. And oftentimes you fight verbally, so you try to be the loudest person in the room or the smartest person in the room to shut him up. You know what I mean? So you are going with mom? Okay. Yeah. Okay. We can go with that. I agree. But his sister dogged the hell out of him in that house when they were younger. I mean, it could be one of his sisters also, since they're older. Very true. I mean, I'm just saying about the behavior, that if you have that loss of control feeling in your mind, anytime that's triggered, you're going to attack whatever it is that's triggering you. It's like being the weaker person and saying, you know what, one day I'm going to be big enough to beat your ass, and that's your focus. So anybody that demonstrates this behavior towards you, you instantly just snap without thinking. So do we have motive here? Possibly. Do we have motive? But none of the females ever responded to him. That's what the book said. Do you think there's a further connection with Maddie than we know about? Do you think they interacted at the if they met at the Mad Greek and he took her friendliness for attraction? I just I'm I cannot put that little puzzle piece there. There's somewhere missing. If she was the target, what made her the target? The simple fact that she didn't respond to a DMs? If she was the one that he was sending the DMs to? It also was a male professor that he argued with, so maybe it was just authority figure or someone considered better than him. Very good point, PKC. Sure, how did he find them then? Exactly. How did he know to DM one of the roommate or one of the victims? How did he know? How did he know? How did he know who they were? I mean, if your message is in their inbox, then you knew them, or you had run into them somewhere. You had more than one acquaintance with them. It's kind of like I've had psychopath friends, okay? We've been out eating at a restaurant. They're attracted to the waitress for whatever damn reason. They're doing their job, but they're attracted to the waitress. They were easily attracted to strippers. They were easily attracted to anybody who gave them any attention. Okay? And what they would do is, if the waitress name was on the ticket, they'd they'd memorize the first name and the last name, the letter, and then they'd go on Facebook and they'd start looking for this person and they'd find them. And they might not instant message them right away, but eventually they would start hounding them. And they might even call up to the restaurant and ask to speak to that person. I tell you, it was very stalkerish behavior, but at that point I just thought, well, you know what? Maybe they're just, they're just trying to get a date, you know what I mean? I think he built up in his mind that he and Maddie had a relationship, even if she just smiled at him. Very good point. And that's what I'm trying to say is, if he ever went into that restaurant and she was nice to him, he could have been in there a million times, even though we've heard that he never was. Like, you're going to really tell your patrons, yeah, we had a killer in our restaurant? They wouldn't want to go there anymore. You'd mess with business like that. What do you think about what I just said, though? I go back and forth because of the survey. I mean, if he knew of the party house, might think easy in and out crime. Yeah. Do you believe? Remember early on when there was a lot of talk about possibly that he could have been in that house more than once, like when nobody was home and walked around the house. Could rejection be the motive? It could. It could have been. I mean, because we don't know how somebody who is who has issues, we don't know what rejection does to that person in their mind. I mean, if you get rejected, I don't know if you women or even men in the chat, if you've ever been rejected to the point that it caused you to go want to get even with somebody. I mean, that's pretty extreme. But this was a very rageful, angry crime. If that was indeed his car, I feel like the laps were going to get courage just to do it. He just didn't stumble up on that house. I think BK and his mother were in control of the father, and that BK has a karmic connection to his mother, possible occult. The Mad Greek is closed, and I think it's directly related to the tragedy. I agree with you. I think he had been there before. I mean, we had heard that very early on that, a lot of people were speculating um, that he could have been in that house or he could have been in that house waiting for them to come home. I mean, there was a lot of people that thought that he was there waiting somewhere and, he waited till everybody got in the house and then he went and attacked. I mean, that made a lot of sense, but I mean, we've learned since then other things. So, I mean, these are a lot of interesting answers that you are giving me. I mean, I hope that I've gotten your mind going a little bit because this makes a lot of sense. I've always wondered about how that connection happened. Even if how are you gonna even Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana did not go to WSU. So how did he find women that went to University of Idaho. What was his connection? Because there is a network always. There's 6 degrees of separation in everything. I'm just glad we don't have Kevin Bacon in the mix. Absolutely. He was a shark circling his prey, working up the courage. His bursting hips comment could lead to that house, meaning maybe he didn't approve of their activity. That's a good thought. That's a good thought. Because he was pretty adamant about the LBGQ community, right? He knows them from going to the party house to get drugs. Well, that's what we've heard. That's what we heard. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk one day. That's about the only way we will know. You're right about that. And I want y'all to know, not there doesn't have to be motive. They don't have to prove motive. I'm just asking about motive because I'm trying to figure it out in my own head, and I've always been trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, how do you know? I'm trying to take the stalking and the surveillance stuff out of there, but it's just so hard for me to put in my mind how he could have had interaction with any of these four without digital or even in. I mean, was one of the girls maybe friend with somebody in his class? Maybe they see. I'm not even going to put these together. I'm just saying there has to be a connection of how these girls ended up on his radar. He seemed to have a way of old verbiage, and that makes me think he would think a woman shouldn't be doing those activities. And there's a lot of Amish in the Pennsylvania community. I don't know if you know that or not, but I used to live in Delaware, and there's a lot of Amish in Pennsylvania. Not that he's Amish, but those beliefs do circulate around that environment, that area. I refuse to believe these students were doing drugs. No, but the parties and the way they dress. I mean, and that's not appropriate. It's hard to try to even think as he would. I really don't think there were drugs of any major sort in that house. Them kids were pretty motivated about being successful. In my opinion, BK's motive is someone that looks as close as possible to KM from middle school that broke his brain and heart. He cannot let go. He has a prototype target person to seek out his gratification. Pennsylvania Dutch. Okay. I mean, all these thoughts are good thoughts. And what makes them good thoughts is they're without the realm of possibility. You know what I mean? They could possibly be put in there as probable scenarios. You're not telling me such outlandish stuff that there's no way that that could match up. You know what I mean? And that's the difference in having an adult conversation and childish fantasies conversations. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, y'all can go and look all that up, and on our next conversation together, on our next live, we can all, kind of revisit this because I will be continue to read this book until I complete it because I want to complete it. You know what I mean? It's interesting to me, even though I know the outcome. It's interesting to me to be able to talk about what's going on and you know those types of things. I've really enjoyed you guys' participation and your comments and your thought process. That makes the live go so much easier, so much smoother when people are able to just speak freely without having all the rigmarole of a chat that is very dysfunctional. You know, And tomorrow's Friday, so I don't have a show lined up yet. But maybe we'll continue this one. Who knows? I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Doodlebug, email me. And I hope that we can do this again soon. What's going on with StreamYard? Did I get booted? My StreamYard froze up. Can y'all still hear me? All right, y'all have an amazing night. You know what I say, Maestro? Cue that music. Y'all behave yourselves. See you soon.